If you haven't checked out my new series, The End of the World with Josh Clark, then now's a great time to start. The holidays are over, the doldrums of winter have begun, and there's no better time to explore existential dread than right now. But wait, there's more to the end of the world than that. Yes, the series is about existential risks, but it's also about hope. The threats that are coming our way that could wipe humans right out of existence could also be just the thing that makes us band together in a way that humanity never has before. In The End of the World, I take you on a journey across time and space. From the moment an asteroid collided with Earth and set off a chain of events that wiped out the dinosaurs, to the post-biological future where we live in a digital format, if we don't already. We'll explore big questions, like whether we're alone in the universe, and exactly how artificial intelligence could take control of our world from us. It also has a beautiful score and cinematic sound design, so it's an adventure for your mind, which is just the thing to snap you out of the winter blahs. All 10 episodes of The End of the World with Josh Clark are available for you to binge now on Apple Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get podcasts.
Catherine Townsend, journalist, licensed investigator, looking into the death of Rebecca Gould that occurred in September, around September 20th, 19th or 20th, 2004.
I'm on the air with Gary Bridgman, or as everybody around here calls him, Gary B. It's been about a month, and we're getting the word out. In a small town, that means hitting local radio. Everybody listens to Gary B., including, hopefully, someone who knows something, anything new about Rebecca's murder. In September of 2004, 22-year-old Rebecca Gould was brutally murdered in a remote area of the Arkansas Ozarks. 14 years later, her killer is still out there. I've come back to Mountain View with one mission: to get justice for Rebecca. I'm Catherine Townsend, and this is Hell and Gone. We're 1 month into our investigation, and we've made a lot of headway. We've talked to Chris and JB, the guys who we've heard are the police's main suspects. But the physical evidence doesn't seem to point to a frenzied meth murder or to a sexual assault. The blunt force trauma to the head indicates that someone killed Rebecca in a rage. The lack of defensive wounds seems to indicate that there wasn't a fight beforehand, but the decomposition of her body could have hidden them. The one person we'd like to get in touch with, Jennifer, has left town for Florida. So we're back to looking for new potential leads. And that's why I'm sitting here in front of Gary B. Because if we can get the town talking, someone will say something that may give us the break we need.
Catherine Townsend. Hello, Catherine.
Hello. WRD Entertainment operates 6 radio stations covering everything from top 40 to country and heavy metal. And Gary B plays on all of them, which means pretty soon, everyone in town will hear this interview.
Others, looking into the death of Rebecca Gould.
Yes. Gary B has a silky, soothing voice that's made for radio. It matches his personality. He has a grandfatherly, caring, and completely genuine manner that puts me instantly at ease, even though the case we're discussing is disturbing as hell.
I know things can get exasperating when you're investigating. What kind of gets on your nerves about trying to follow up on a lead or something like that?
Well, look, I think it's important to take a step back and remember that this is someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's family member. And if it was your daughter, sister, someone in your life, you'd want someone to come forward. If
someone knew something, you would want them to come forth. I think that's a good way to look at it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that the reluctance to come forward or kind of rock the boat has been a little bit difficult. And then also just the physicality, just finding people, as I said, finding where they are, getting a hold of them. Also just getting them to understand that I'm not from here. I'm a journalist. I'm a female. It's just letting everyone know they can talk to me and I am here to help.
She's here to help. She wants to talk to you if you know something or if you'd like to tell her something.
Hopefully someone can come through that one piece of information that'll help solve it.
And sometimes it only takes one piece.
That's right. That's right.
So And you never know what that piece of information might be.
Absolutely. When a beautiful and popular local college student was murdered, it dominated the headlines. But as time passed with no new leads, the media coverage became scant. Rebecca's father, Larry, was determined to keep the case alive however he could. In 2016, he was interviewed for an article written by George Jarrett and A.K. Barnes that provided new details on the case. Several days after the story was published, an anonymous letter arrived at Dr. Gould's house.
Her father received a letter. He really
Yes.
thought it was the real deal.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
I have not seen the letter. I've heard about it. I know that someone claimed to have heard in the college parking lot, claimed to have overheard some people talking about the murder. It's hard to say. I'm hoping to see a copy, but based on what I've sort of seen and heard, it's really hard to say whether it's someone who was involved or possibly maybe someone who was trying to stir something up or, it's really hard to say. I can't really say too much because I haven't seen it.
When I first showed up in town and started asking questions, a lot of people told me, "You're not the police. You have no power." In a way, they are right. But making people talk to you because you have a badge and making people want to talk to you are two totally different skill sets. And I have always been good at getting people to tell me their darkest secrets. The radio station plays my interview 3 times in 3 days. And it doesn't take long for my Facebook and text messages to start lighting up. Dude, someone else. Anonymous text. Gotta love it.
What does it say?
Just asking if it's me, the woman who was on the radio today. They replayed it again. Okay, I'm in love with the guys at KWZ Radio. They have been amazing. They got me on the radio. They made it a priority. They've replayed it 3 times now. Like, I got to give them a big shout out. They're awesome. It's big news around here, and everyone knows people involved in this case. So it's like everyone's got a personal involvement. They've gone above and beyond. And they also put it in a slot that's like drive time when most people would hear it. And it's working, and I'm continuing to tell them, hey, this is working, because every single week we've gotten hits on that radio show. Because it's right here in the community and everybody listens to it.
And because it takes an hour to get anywhere in this town?
Yeah, everybody in Melbourne, Batesville area, like everyone in the morning is going somewhere. They're taking their kids to school or going to work. But the other fact that's been racing through my brain since the interview is that anonymous letter that has never been publicly released. It seems like a lead we need to follow, especially since it mentions a group of people who supposedly were talking about the murder of Rebecca. Could this be members of Rebecca's friend group? Or the female we've heard rumors about getting into fights with Rebecca? As I told Gary, I haven't seen the letter, but George Jarrett has.
The letter came right after I had written a series, written some. Kind of the chronology was, for the first little bit, maybe a year after she died, there was lots of media attention. Even when I was in the Baxter Bulletin, I wrote about it. And but then it just kind of went away. And then I was writing my book about the West Memphis 3 case, and I didn't know if I'd ever write more than one book, And so the first editor, who edited it, I was like, I included the forward, and he's like, this is a really good story, but it doesn't really belong with this case that you're writing about. And I told him I don't care. I said, if I'm only going to write one book, I'm going to get this out one way or the other, because somebody besides people who live in these 3 or 4 little counties in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, are going to find out about this case. And so I wrote the book, and universally, the comments I would get, people would always ask me about that case. And then, of course, that led to me reconnecting with her dad, and actually it happened right here in Hardy. I was at the library here. She asked me to come over and do a book signing one Saturday. I was like, yeah, I'll come over there. I enjoy doing them, meet people. And this gentleman came up, I pitched the book, and at the very end, I always pitched her story. And then I asked him, I said, so do you want to buy one? He said, yes. And I said, okay. And he goes, well, I want to buy 10 of them. I was like, 10? Whatever I said to him, I need to say to everybody, And as I folded over the first page, he took out a little ribbon with her face on it, and he put it on the book. And I hadn't seen him. didn't recognize him. He kind of had like a scruffy beard before. He was wearing a hat, looking for his daughter. I mean, you understand. And I said, I know exactly who you are. And I got up, I shook his hand. Of course, we started hugging, started crying. But we reconnected, and then we started really hitting hard. Dr. Gould received a letter. I believe he got it at his office. It was an anonymous letter. It was either going to go to him, or the return address was the FBI office in Little Rock. And in the letter, the person who wrote it claimed that they overheard a conversation at, I believe it's Ozarka College in Melbourne, between a couple of people, a female, male, 3 or 4 people talking. And, somebody said, in quotes, "We did that bitch," and they were talking about Rebecca. It was pretty obvious. And then in the letter, they gave, some descriptions of what the people look like. And I wrote about it, but I didn't include it in my latest book, and I didn't include it in news stories. The police are investigating, and, they want to tie it together. So I don't want to impede their investigation in any way.
It's important in investigations to not release every piece of information because you have to be able to compare and verify a new source.
But I did want to make sure people knew that this letter was out there, and I read it, and I understand that the police think that it's a false lead, but I read it. There was some sincerity in it. It looked like it had been written again. It looked like a woman had written it. It was the grammar was good. Which being a writer, you see certain words put together a certain way, and you can kind of tell the identity of the person writing it if you write every day. But it could be totally bogus. That's possible. It could be totally real. I actually said in the book, I said, if you wrote this, please identify yourself and come to the police and make a statement. I think that what happened was this person who wrote the letter, if it's real, probably read a story somewhere that got out. I worked really closely with A.K. Barnes, the reporter over at Arroweyed Media. She's a really good friend of mine, really great human being, by the way. We did stories together, and we just hit it hard, and then it just kind of died down again. And at some point, it's just going to take one little crack.
That's what's so frustrating. I remember reading, because I've been a long time, I've done articles about it and stuff, and then when in 2016 or whenever your series of stories came out, followed by the letter, when I read about the letter, I was like, thank God, maybe something will happen now. Even if it's not real, maybe it'll get someone to talk, but then, yeah. And now nothing. And so now we're here.
Yeah, we're back. I mean, literally we're back to where we were the day that they found her body. I mean, that's where we're at right now.
It's becoming clearer and clearer to me that we need to find out who wrote this anonymous letter. And to do that, we need to see it for ourselves and mine it for any new clues. So we go back to Larry. I'm hopeful that now that we've gained his trust, he'll share it with us.
Over the years, I'd get phone calls here at my office. I would get some notes that were taken by my secretary on somebody that called about Rebecca's case, and then they'd scribble some things. In some cases, there'd be a phone number and I could follow up. And in some cases, I got written material. So I'd get letters or I'd get things sent to me. I can recall just offhand that I did receive a phone call, and I believe I talked to this girl, and she was frightened. She wanted to get some information to me, and bits and pieces of that did get passed to me.
Larry has several overflowing manila folders filled with notes from years of collecting tips. They are neatly laid out on the dining room table next to his own murder board. And I see pictures of Rebecca with Justin, Casey, Chris. So much red string linking the various parties. And in one of those manila folders, we find the letter. Like George mentioned, it looks like it was written by a female. We won't read the entire letter in order to protect parts of the police investigation, but we can share parts that have already been made public. The writer claimed to have overheard a conversation at Ozarka College in Melbourne between at least 4 people who were bragging about Rebecca's murder. The author said 2 women and a man approached another man with dirty blonde hair who was a student at the college. As they walked toward the parking lot, the writer said they overheard the male student asking the other 3, "Did you get it?" The 3 people told him that they killed her and dragged her through several rooms at the house. The alleged male killer said blood was everywhere and she put up a fight and screamed a lot. The letter contains specific descriptions of all of the people involved in the conversation. The letter writer apologized for not coming forward sooner and said they could identify those people. But because nobody has identified the writer, whatever knowledge they have remains a secret.
If you just took that letter and spent some time on it, you'd probably be able to find the person that wrote it. And the person that wrote it definitely could have been able to, and they even said that they could identify the people that, just look at old pictures and probably put the faces to the description that was on there. I'd love to see somehow this get out to whoever wrote that one letter, if they could hear about it and possibly come forward.
So what we've been doing is the KIT story got shared a lot, and it's all being shared, people in that community. And then all these people are friending me, so it is becoming more hard to escape, I guess, for so I think, so my point is, if there is someone who's a student, a lot of them were students at Ozarka too. So if there are people who in that friend group, a friend of a friend, they're probably going to see it on Facebook.
Well, I think there's probably quite a few people that if they had access to that letter and the description that whoever wrote the letter provided, which was really well done.
Yeah, it was
that many people could probably say, oh, I know who this would have been.
Yeah.
And to come up with those individuals, or maybe one or two that fit that description, that would narrow it down. At one time, I was going to try to get into the people at Ozarka that were the higher-ups and try to get access to records, but then you're into areas where you're going to probably need some kind of permission or...
Well, but I'm sure they have a yearbook or a list of students. Yeah.
Well, in the past, when certain things have been done to try to draw people out, a number of the people that I guess I would call suspicious or possibly suspects in my mind, whether they are in law enforcement's mind, I don't know, but they would befriend the person that was out there.
Yes. That's another complication. A lot of people will friend you for good reasons, and some people will friend you to watch you. But either way, it's good, because then you can watch, it's two-way, so you can see what they're doing too, and you can see who their friends are. So, yeah, I think that's good. I'm accepting all the friend requests right now.
I can really feel the frustration in Larry's voice, and I can't say I blame him. Every time he gets a tip, he is forced to go on an emotional roller coaster and reopen old wounds. I've heard from both George and Larry that the police think the letter is a red herring, but I can tell neither of them wholeheartedly believe that, and I'm not sure I do either. We'll be right back. Hey guys, this is Catherine, and I want to talk to you for a second about Ring. Ring video doorbells help you stay connected to your home from anywhere in the world. I love the fact that you can see whatever is going on at your house from wherever you are, and you can talk to them. So you can tell the delivery guy to drop the package, or scream at the shady-looking guy who shows up at 3 a.m. and tell him to get off your porch. In fact, I'm looking at getting Ring video doorbells and floodlight cams for my dad's house in Mountain View, because they would definitely come in handy on those dark Ozark nights as we investigate the case. As a Helen Gone listener, you have a special offer on a Ring starter kit available right now. With a video doorbell and motion-activated floodlight cam, the starter kit has everything you need to start building a ring of security around your home. Just go to ring.com/HelenGone. That's ring.com/HelenGone. It's the next day, and we've tracked down A.K. Barnes, who wrote the story that led to Larry getting the letter.
I normally don't, but I literally just got done working out, so
She works as a media teacher at the local high school. We meet in the hallway of the church she attends, and her son heads off to play in another room while we talk about Rebecca's murder.
Oh! Yeah. Can you give me 20 minutes? Yeah, sure. Y'all gotten closer than me.
AK is excited to talk to us. She believes in the power of media attention and thinks that this is the best way to bring Rebecca's killer to justice.
Okay, so I started doing a cold case series,
at the paper. I've always been interested in unsolved murders. I guess it's from watching Unsolved Mysteries growing up, perhaps. And so I was just asking around, and I had done one on Sabrina Underwood in Fulton County, and then there was another lady who was actually Connie Townsend from, I think, Izard County, Fulton County maybe, was burned alive in her trailer. And then one of my coworkers had brought up author George Jarrett, and had brought that he had worked this Rebecca Gould case, and they told me I should check it out. And so that all they knew was that the dad was a doctor in Mountain Home. So I just looked up Gould, Baxter County, Mountain Home, and I found him and left him a voicemail. And I kid you not, like, I think that was in the fall, and he did not. And I just wrote it off because I thought I'd never hear from him again. And then Easter Sunday, the weirdest days ever that for him to respond, he sent me this long text from Bora Bora about how he wants to work with me in this case, and then we just hit the ground running.
Bora Bora. I remind myself to ask Larry about that the next time we talk.
Just the way that he has overcome so much and how he's able to function. I don't know that I could function if I lost a child, let alone a child that was brutally murdered, and nobody will help me solve it. I don't know how he functions.
You got this awesome story, and then someone did write a letter. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes. He asked him to write a letter, and then someone wrote a letter, and
we feel like we made such progress. Like, that's the most progress we think we've made, just because all of us just finally got together and said, okay, you know what? Let's do this. Let's solve this. And we got so far, and we were so hopeful when we got that letter.
You can sense how hopeful she, George, and Larry were when they got the letter.
I still think it was a genuine letter. I don't know. George goes back and forth, but I think for the most part, we're pretty sure that was a genuine letter.
Well, if the letter was genuine, so what do you, do you have any theories about who killed Rebecca? What's your thoughts now?
I think we all have our theories, and I think we all kind of speculate who did it, and I think I don't know. I do have my theories. I don't want to say names, but I think I know who did it.
AK, like a lot of the town, seems to think that there were multiple people involved in Rebecca's murder. She also seems sure that the letter is genuine, but I'm not convinced.
It's just so hard because you just can't pinpoint one person, because I think there were so many people involved in this. Especially in that letter really supports our theory that we already had. That's why it was so bizarre, because it was totally backing the theory we already had.
Obviously the person's still anonymous. Do you have any theory about who wrote it or where they are?
No, and we wish that they would come forward, because it's not like we're gonna blast them to the press or blast them in the paper. We just want to talk. I have so many people that will tell me little hints or tell me something, and then I'm like, can you just meet with me and Larry and George for just a minute? And we don't even want to publish anything. And they're scared. They won't do it. People, it's very hard, and to get people to talk about this. And we just wish whoever wrote this would come forward.
If anyone understands how hard getting people to talk about this case is, it's me.
In many cases, we've had to just show up, because if we call and ask, it's so much harder for people. Or either we show up, or we'll have to be introduced through a friend of theirs, because it's so hard when you call someone and just say you're from the press and you want to talk. It's really hard, and people are scared. There's some scary people involved in this case.
Yes.
So,
especially since you don't know who it is, you don't really know who to trust and who not to trust, because it could literally be anyone, and I'm sure we've seen them at this point. And
absolutely. And they're following your stuff, they're reading your stories, and they get spooked out, and then it's like a no contact order. They all just zip it. And I think we put some pressure on people, and I think people were starting to get scared, because I would go through Sonic and people would make little comments to me like, you better be careful writing this article. I think the people who have done this are around or have ties here still, and they are still on their toes. I think they think it's died down, but it hasn't, because now you guys are going to bring it back up.
Yeah.
So now it's your turn to put some pressure on. This story is still my baby at the paper, so actually I could do an article on y'all.
We'd totally be down to do it. We did some news stuff, we did a radio thing, because I feel like you guys made so much progress in breaking this, and it's kind of everyone working together at this point. because the more pressure we can put on these people, like the better chance we're going to have.
I mean, I've had people who will give us enough information to kind of help us along, but I think a lot of people just want to be protected, and I think they don't want their name out there. I think they've tried to move on, which if somebody knows what happened, I don't care if you are trying to move on. I don't care if you have recreated yourself. It is your moral duty to come forward. But I mean, at the same time, I stand by my word and I protect people when they want anonymity. There's a lot of people who know who did it. And that's what's just so crazy to me. I don't understand why this case can't get solved. I do not understand. They spent 12 hours inside that trailer.
Well, and in talking to these guys, it seems like we've heard a lot of stories. There are stories that make sense, right? They fit together. And I don't understand they weren't able to piece this together when they had all these people voluntarily talking to them. That's what I can't get. There's just so many. Also, that's been a big part of the challenge, too, is figuring out what's rumor and what's not.
I think this little circle that did this, they have like this death pack. And I've never seen anything like it. It's like the bro code or something. Nobody's breaking through this because they will not talk. Either they don't really know or they are just taking it to their grave. And I don't know, I'm just not built like that. I couldn't live with myself.
This isn't the first time I've heard rumors of an inner circle involved in Rebecca's death, a secret party, and a death pact. And if this group of killers does in fact exist, we're on their radar now. They're on my Facebook. They have my cell phone number, and they definitely know where I live. I know that I might be in danger, but I don't care. Am I crazy or just obsessed? It's probably a little bit of both.
Do you get freaked out? Because when I was knee-deep in these articles, like, my imagination told me, one time I was doing this on the Sabrina Underwood, and I know who killed her in my mind, and I'm like, he's watching you right this through your window, he's gonna come kill you tonight. In my mind, I'm like, the murderer is on to me. Because I was putting all these articles out. You're looking at me like I'm crazy, but like you think they're following you or something.
I've had that thought, and you know what? It's not entirely untrue. They all know where you live. I mean, it's a small place.
But what George told me, he goes, AK, they're not going to take you out because if you're right in the middle of this case, they're done for. And you're about to suck me back in with you. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
But
we can all talk it out together.
Yes. But I can tell, like, when you get into this one, I don't know what it is about this case.
AK is right. This case sucks you in. It's haunting that everyone thinks they know what happened, but they've reconciled themselves to just living near the killer. If we can find out who wrote this letter, we can get some insights about the leads it contains. But we don't have many clues to go on. It's postmarked Little Rock. The return address was the FBI office in Little Rock, which seems like a pretty sophisticated move. As George pointed out, the letter had good grammar. It seems like the biggest clue as to the writer's identity is the handwriting itself. So we reach out to a handwriting analyst.
Let me get your case.
Okay.
That's Diane Peterson. She specializes in graphology, which is identifying personality traits and other characteristics of a letter writer's personality through the strokes and patterns revealed by their handwriting. She looks over the letter to see if she can provide any details about who wrote it.
I'm looking at where something, initial strokes, terminal strokes, placement on the page, word combinations, letter combinations, how they connect, spacing, zone differences. Like this person, they have a large mid-zone. And what that means is, like, on the line paper, the lowercase letters almost fill up. They're almost as large as the entire line, between each line. There's not a lot of space between. I mean, it is true that when you're young, you have immaturity showing up in your handwriting. As you get older, you have graphic maturity, and then you decline. So with that being said, I see graphic maturity with this letter, with, this writing. Mm-hmm. But as to say, age line, it's an adult. As far as personality traits, to me, this is a person that is more immature than mature. They live in the moment, and that's because that mid-zone is bubbly. Like, you look at a teenager's handwriting, they're usually big and bubbly, and because they don't care about a year from now, they're looking at next Friday night. And so people that have this big bubbly writing usually have money problems because they're never looking into the future, because they're never planning for it. There's also the lower stem of the Y. See how they're just straight? There's not a loop that goes back. That's usually a person that is very socially, they like to be by themselves. They don't really prefer a lot of company. They would prefer to be, they're probably more introverted. And large loops, like in the D and the O, like the Ozark, people are willing to take on more responsibility. So, I didn't see any efforts that the person did to disguise their writing.
An adult, but with a slightly immature personality more reminiscent of a teen. Sounds like the letter writer could have been a student. And money troubles? In this part of the Ozarks, that's nearly everybody. The handwriting tells us the writer wasn't trying to disguise their writing, which lends credence to the idea that the letter is genuine. But there are a few things about the letter that don't ring true. First of all, there's the timing. The letter was postmarked only a few days after the story came out asking for help.
This is really suspicious. July 21st. That was the first article that came out, the one we just read where it said, hey, please write me a letter at my office, okay? Now, then a story comes out on August 3rd saying they got a letter, right? I mean, and I don't know what their deadline is either. It might even be, like, some of these papers are weekly, so you got to wonder if the story came out on August 3rd, like when their deadline was. I mean, that's literally like a couple days later they got a letter. And the post office around here isn't exactly quick. So the 2 to 3 days it would take to get the letter, plus like I don't know. It could be totally legit. Someone could have read that and been moved. When
was the letter again?
July 21st was the first, and this is the story about the letter. Comes out on August the 3rd.
I wonder what day it actually...
Let's find out, right while we're sitting here, let's find out when their deadlines are. So Area-Wide Media is published, it was a Thursday, all right? The story came out on August 3rd, which was about 2 weeks later. In the story, it says on Friday, which I guess will be the 29th, George Jared, like Mark Hollingsworth confirmed with George Jared that there was interest in the letter. So it had to be sometime that week, sometime between the 21st and the following Friday at least, which is a pretty short period of time, literally right after the story came out that they sent it, like a day or two after.
Secondly, the identification. The letter writer says that they recognized one of the people talking as a student at Ozarka. Now, if the author was organized enough to get this much detail and smart enough to figure out how to address a letter to the Arkansas FBI, it seems to me that on such a small campus, they could have figured out that supposedly unknown student's name.
It was said in the letter, they were bragging about how they killed her, but she put up a fight. So she put up a fight, then people would have marks on their faces, on somewhere.
Right.
Finally, and most crucially, the letter doesn't match the physical evidence found at the crime scene. The letter mentioned a knockdown, drag-out fight, which from the limited knowledge we have so far of the case, does not seem to have occurred. Also, references to getting the stuff don't ring true. A small amount of marijuana and some money were left behind. Most importantly, we know from Danielle and Rebecca's friends that she was a spitfire who never backed down from a conflict. Now, I've replayed the morning of September 20th, 2004, thousands of times in my mind. And in every scenario, no matter how afraid she may have been, if she saw people coming for her, Rebecca Gould would have gone down fighting.
Trying to figure out what's real and what's not real is like a whole nother layer.
It's really hard.
It is really hard. Yeah, there's a lot that's hard about this. I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about last night is the fact that, you know, and I'm not a lawyer, but it's been very difficult because you're not allowed to say there's never been a suspect named by the police. The police are giving out no information. They won't even really tell you who the people of interest are. I think they said a little bit about it at the time. They said Casey was a person of interest at one point, but then it was very quickly reported that he was not a suspect. And then after that, no official suspects were named. So it's difficult to even talk about the case because you don't want to get in trouble legally. And it really creates this this just wall of silence. You can't talk. Everyone's whispering the names. Everyone's texting me these names. You can't say they're a suspect. You can't say they're a person of interest. And it not only is bad for the investigation, it's also bad for these people because they never get charged, but they never get cleared either.
And I feel like the investigation feels like it's at a real impasse. I feel like, you know, for whatever reason, the police have a very definite idea about who it is. Other people have a different idea. It just feels like it's at a place where it really might not get solved unless some radical new approach comes in. We've learned from the autopsy that there were no obvious defensive wounds on the body and no signs that she had been restrained. So who wrote this letter and why? Were they trying to help or to throw off the police? Could it have been written in an attempt to get media attention to support one of the other theories surrounding Rebecca's death? Or could it have been the killer, stoking the town's rumor mill to continue to hide in plain sight? We'll be right back. Hey guys, this is Catherine, and I want to talk to you for a second about Ring. Ring video doorbells help you stay connected to your home from anywhere in the world. I love the fact that you can see whatever is going on at your house from wherever you are, and you can talk to them. So you can tell the delivery guy to drop the package, or scream at the shady-looking guy who shows up at 3 a.m. and tell him to get off your porch. In fact, I'm looking at getting Ring video doorbells and floodlight cams for my dad's house in Mountain View, because they would definitely come in handy on those dark Ozark nights as we investigate the case. As a Hell and Gone listener, you have a special offer on a Ring starter kit available right now. With a video doorbell and motion-activated floodlight cam, the starter kit has everything you need to start building a ring of security around your home. Just go to ring.com/hellandgone. That's ring.com/hellandgone. Even after being on the case for a short period of time, I do sympathize with the police. Because just a week after being on the air, we're weeding through hundreds of texts, tips, and false rumors.
This is the one, the guy I talked to. I've recently heard some information you may be interested in. Rebecca Gould's boyfriend was my best friend since grade school. So this is the guy who was friends with Casey and called and said, I think he mentioned Chris and JB, and he said he knew someone at work who'd known them. It literally was one line, and it said, look for a foot in a freezer in Izard County. That's all it said. It said, if you're looking into the Rebecca Gould case, look into a foot that's in a freezer in Izard County. And we pretty quickly discounted that because, of course, we'd seen the autopsy report and she was not missing a foot.
Yeah, there was also one of the things that Brian Bangs said. Brian kind of became my guy on the inside, and he kind of started interviewing people inside prison and was like asking people, hey, have you heard about this murder? What do you know? And everybody seemed to have their own story. And Brian did mention this is jailhouse gossip. And it clearly sounds like jailhouse gossip because there was one that was like, somebody threatened to beat this guy up if he didn't keep his mouth shut because he found a toe and it was Rebecca's toe. And again, she had all her toes.
People told Brian that she had been held at a different location and like chained up and held hostage on a mattress and all that. And I really think that came from the very beginning of the investigation because look, an expert looking from the outside, reading that autopsy report, it's very obvious that whoever hit Rebecca on the head and from the blood they found at the scene, she was dead pretty quickly. She wasn't taken to a secondary location. None of the autopsy bears that out. But police said at the time that the mechanism of injury was created from the scene and she had been forcibly removed from the residence. Of course, it wasn't her that was forcibly removed, it was her body that was forcibly removed. But with them saying that, I think people got ideas in their head that she might have been kidnapped.
Tips are one of the things that make investigations so challenging. Some can contain a grain of truth, while others are red herrings. But like I told Gary B., no piece of information is too small.
Oh, all right. Just heard you on KWOZ with Gary, and I just wanted to let you know that on that Saturday, on the weekend Rebecca was killed, and not sure what time it was, but it was in the afternoon, there was a little dark blue car with a guy and a woman that came by and went up to the barn right past the trailer. The guy got out, and I thought he was going to use the bathroom, but he went to the back of the car, put on like jogging pants, and got a weed eater out and weed eated a little bit. Rebecca came out on the porch when they drove back by and stopped, and she went to the end of the porch and said, "Did you get it done?" And he said, "Yes." And they drove off. They had Texas tags on the car. Then a little while later, Rebecca came out to her car, opened the door, and got something out and went back inside the trailer. She was wearing a gray tank top and a pair of gray sweatpants. We did tell the Arkansas State Police, and not sure it has anything to do with anything. It was just really strange because he only weed-eated for maybe about 15 minutes or so, not long at all, and it was where the old barn is. Just thought it was strange. Never seen the guy before. He had black hair and was young looking. Couldn't really see the woman.
So is this person lying? Is this the killer, or like what is trying to deter us? What is this, you know?
It sounds, the tip itself, if you don't think about that part, sounds kind of credible because it's, why would you say, I mean, if you're trying to make something up, you'd say, you know, you got out of the back of the car, got a knife or whatever, but, or you'd say you recognize somebody, but to say someone got out of the car, put on jogging pants and started weed eating seems like something random to make up. I did look into the Texas connection, and there are a couple cars with Texas plates owned by different members of Casey's family because some of them live there. So that's not necessarily weird. I mean, it might be, you know, I get that it's Melbourne, Arkansas, and there's not that many out-of-state plates, but in his particular case, it doesn't seem that strange. And they said, not sure I could pick him out, but his hair was short, black, and he was tan skin, not black or Hispanic, just looked tan. The lady was white and she never got out. We had never seen that vehicle and I just thought it was weird, and they had Texas tags. When Rebecca came out and asked if he finished it, whatever, I think she means when Rebecca came out of the house and asked if it was done, she acted like she knew him and seemed fine. You know what's weird about that though, Taylor? Do you remember the letter? So in the letter, remember how whoever wrote the letter said it was made a point of several times saying tan skin, which I thought was odd. A lot of people seemed absolutely sure it was Jennifer and possibly Justin. Probably just as many seemed absolutely sure it was Chris and JB.
To sift through these tips and figure out our next steps, Taylor and I take another look at the murder board. There's an odd similarity between the person who wrote the letter and this tip. Could this tip be from the author of the letter? Or is there a new person we need to be looking for with black hair and tan skin? As I said, the flood of tips is both extremely helpful and extremely frustrating. At this point, I think the letter is most likely bogus. The timing is just too convenient, and the description doesn't match what we know about the crime scene. I still want to talk to Jennifer, but the group theory is looking less and less likely. And according to Justin and the police, she had an alibi the day of the murder. According to what we've heard from several police sources, whoever killed Rebecca most likely knew her. Someone she knew well enough to be comfortable hanging around in her underwear and pajama top. That's not likely in a group setting. It seems like it would be someone she trusted, someone who was able to get close enough to her so that she never saw the first blow coming, someone who knew about the loose piano leg. We look over the murder board, the names on Post-its: Rebecca, Chris, JB, Justin, Jennifer, and Casey. I look at Casey's photo on the wall. He's the only person who has been officially ruled out as a suspect by the police. But at this point, I can't eliminate anyone. We need to find Casey and figure out if his alibi for September 20th, 2004 is really as airtight as the police say it is. I'm Katherine Townsend, and this is Hell and Gone. Done is a joint production between How Stuff Works and School of Humans. It is written and recorded by me, Katherine Townsend. Taylor Church is our producer and story editor. Audio editing and design by Jonathan Sleep. Mix engineer, Glenn Matullo. Audio mixing and love by Tune Welders. Executive producers Brandon Barr and Elsie Crowley for School of Humans, and Connell Byrne and Chuck Bryant for How Stuff Works. Our field producer is James Morrison. Our researcher is Sandy Klosterman. Theme and original score by Ben Soli. Available wherever you get your music. To dig into the investigation, please visit helengonepodcast.com or follow us on social media.
Hi, I'm Ariel Caston.
And I'm Jonathan Strickland.
And together, we're going to tell you the stories behind some of the biggest triumphs and failures in business.
That's right. We're going to explore situations that tested the mettle of entrepreneurs. Pivotal moments that required making tough decisions.
We'll be talking about some big companies that everybody knows, like Disney, Lego, and Harley-Davidson.
And together, we try to answer the question, what do you do when you find yourself at the brink?
Listen and subscribe at Apple Podcasts or on the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.